Welcome back to Griffonomics, where we conduct financial investigations to define the risk before we look at the reward. Today, we're diving deep into Axon Enterprise, ticker AXON.
Yeah, Axon. It's a fascinating one, isn't it? Because, it really doesn't fit neatly into any box.
Right.
You're looking at a company pushing towards a $50 billion valuation now, but its roots, they're in a single weapon, the TASER.
And that transition is what we really want to unpack today, from just making that one piece of hardware to becoming this huge cloud-based public safety ecosystem. It's arguably one of the biggest, maybe riskiest corporate shifts we've seen.
It really is. It's quite a story.
Okay, so let's get into it. Our mission here is to understand how they actually pulled that off. We'll look at, the high-stakes beginning, the founder's influence, then this really unique subscription model they've built.
Which is key to understanding their financials now.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole AI and acquisition strategy that's just fueling this massive growth. We need to figure out what really underpins this huge valuation. What's the foundation?
And to really get Axon, you can't just start with the financials or the products. You absolutely have to start with their core philosophy, what they call their Moonshot.
Ah, the Moonshot.
Yeah, this isn't just about profit for them, though obviously they're doing very well. They're aiming for something much bigger, fundamentally changing public safety globally.
And this is where it gets really interesting, especially if you're studying companies driven by a core mission. Their top goal, the big one, isn't just maximizing shareholder value. It's stated very clearly: cut gun-related deaths between police and the public by 50% in 10 years.
Aiming for 2033.
Which is just an enormous goal, a deeply human goal to build your entire corporate strategy around.
It's their North Star. Genuinely, everything maps back to it.
Yeah.
Their official mission has 3 parts: protect life, capture truth, and accelerate justice. And the founder, Rick Smith, he frames it brilliantly. He sees gun violence not as a political issue primarily, but as a technology problem. He believes tech can be the impartial solution, the ultimate aim. Make the bullet obsolete. It sounds audacious, right?
It really does.
But then you look at their products, the latest TASER, the AI stuff, the drones. Every single bet, every R&D dollar is aimed at that mission, that kind of internal alignment. That's a powerful edge.
That ambition is definitely compelling. But the company didn't start in the cloud, did it? Let's take a listener back. It began as TASER International, way back in 1993.
Right, and the founding story itself is critical context. Rick Smith didn't just see a market cap. He started this after 2 of his high school friends were shot and killed.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, separate incidents. So it was born out of personal tragedy, this desire for a safer alternative. He funded it initially with money from his dad and a friend, and apparently it nearly bankrupted his parents early on.
Really?
Yeah, it was a real struggle. Took them 7 years just to get to the IPO, to get that external funding they desperately needed.
So the core product, the TASER, technically it's defined as a non-lethal neuromuscular stimulator. It's important we understand exactly what that means.
It is, because it's not just about pain. It actually works by hijacking the nervous system.
Okay.
The electrical pulse causes muscles to contract involuntarily. But here's the crucial part. It's not just voltage. Effectiveness hinges on the spread between the 2 probes, the darts that hit the target.
The spread. Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. If the probes land, say, just a couple of inches apart, the electricity affects only a small muscle area. Yeah, it hurts, but it won't incapacitate someone.
Right.
To really stop someone, prevent them from running or fighting, you need about a 12-inch spread, somewhere on the body. That distance ensures enough nerve tissue gets overwhelmed.
12 inches.
Roughly. And that's what the newest TASER, the TASER 10, is designed to do better, reaching out effectively up to 45 feet now.
Now, on safety. The media often links TASER use directly to deaths, but the source material points to 2 specific causal risks that are often missed in that narrative.
Yeah, they're very specific about the known causal links. First, deaths from falls. Someone is suddenly incapacitated, they fall badly, hit their head, maybe fall from a height. They estimate maybe 20 deaths over the years from that.
Okay.
Second is ignition risk. Deploying it in a flammable environment, think a meth lab, or if someone's covered in gasoline. Much rarer, maybe around 8 deaths linked to that.
So distinct from the device's electrical effect itself.
Exactly. The company argues that these specific risks get overshadowed when someone dies later, perhaps due to drugs or a medical condition, and the TASER gets blamed without direct causality. It's a complex issue.
That context is crucial for understanding the next massive step, the pivot that really defines Axon today, moving from just hardware to cloud software, starting with body cameras around 2008.
And this was a radical move.
Yeah.
Hugely expensive, and it grew directly out of all the public debate and controversy around TASER use.
Right.
The founder's logic was actually pretty simple and maybe brilliant. Instead of getting stuck in abstract debates about good cops versus bad cops, let's just record what happens.
Get the facts.
Exactly. Work from an irrefutable record. They essentially didn't just join the body camera market. They arguably created the modern market for it.
But, selling a weapon police already understood is one thing. Betting the company on data management technology that departments didn't even realize they needed yet, that sounds incredibly risky. Took almost a decade to pay off.
Oh, it was a monster risk. Yeah. A company-defining bet. That body camera journey took about 7 really tough years before it even started gaining traction.
Just 7 years.
Imagine the pressure inside the company. We found sources saying that as late as 2012, the #1 question at company meetings was literally, when are we shutting down the video business?
Wow. So even internally, people thought it was failing.
Deep skepticism. The financial strain must have been immense. But the real genius wasn't the camera hardware itself. It was realizing the data was the key. The bet on cloud software, evidence.com.
Ah, evidence.com.
They saw the future wasn't the camera. It was managing, storing, securing potentially petabytes of incredibly sensitive video evidence. That was the mountain to climb.
And this is where that famous internal civil war story comes from, right?
Yeah.
The old hardware guys versus the new software people.
That phrase fits perfectly. To build evidence.com, they had to bring in top-tier software engineers, paying, Silicon Valley salaries, maybe up to $300K a year back then.
Okay.
And for years, these expensive new hires were generating basically zero revenue. Meanwhile, the traditional TASER sales team, they were bringing in all the cash.
You can imagine the friction.
Oh, yeah. Think about the hardware guys saying, how can you justify paying these huge salaries for people selling nothing while we're out here hitting our targets with actual products? It was a massive cultural clash. A hardware company trying to become a software company, all under one roof.
So how did leadership keep that going? Justify pouring money into something that wasn't selling for so long? And what finally turned the tide?
Relentless focus on the long-term vision, on that mission. Capture truth. They had to keep hammering home that the cloud software, the data management, that was the strategic asset, not just the camera.
Okay.
The validation, the big external aha moment, really came in 2014.
Yeah.
The shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right, I remember.
The chaos, the conflicting accounts, the lack of clear video. It suddenly created this universal demand from activists to police chiefs. Everyone agreed. We need irrefutable video evidence.
Ferguson changed everything.
Overnight, it validated 7 years of that high-risk bet.
Yeah.
What was speculative suddenly became essential. The market finally caught up with where Axon already was. The cloud era for them truly began then.
That risk, that hard-won bet, it's clearly paying off massively now.
Let's shift gears to the present day and look at the financial engine of the modern Axon, this fortress built on subscriptions, starting with their recent Q3 2025 numbers.
Yeah, the recent performance is really impressive. It shows the strategy is working and actually accelerating. Q3 revenue hit $711 million.
Solid number. But what's more telling is the trend. That was their 7th straight quarter, with year-over-year growth over 30%, 31% this time. Sustaining that kind of growth, especially while transforming the business, that points to a flywheel really picking up speed.
And digging into that number, the software piece is clearly driving it. Software and services revenue grew 41% year over year. That's way ahead of the connected devices growth at 24%.
Exactly. That software outperformance is the financial moat, and the heart of it is their annual recurring revenue, ARR.
ARR, the key metric for any subscription business.
Absolutely. It grew 41% year over year, hitting $1.3 billion. This is the predictable revenue stream they can count on. And it's growing for 2 reasons: signing up new departments and getting existing ones to buy more premium cloud features.
So ARR shows the predictable base. But net revenue retention, NRR, that tells you if customers are sticking around and spending more over time.
And their NRR is phenomenal, 124% in Q3 2025.
124%.
Yeah, even for a top SaaS company, that's spectacular. Anything over 100% means revenue grows even if they add 0 new customers, just from the existing base spending more.
Okay.
That 124% tells you 2 things. Churn is tiny de minimis attrition, they call it. Once a department is in the Axon ecosystem, they basically never leave. And second, their land and expand strategy is working incredibly well.
Can you break down land and expand for us in this context? What does that actually look like for a police department?
Sure. So Axon lands an account, maybe starting with a basic body camera contract, which includes the evidence.com license. That's the foot in the door.
Got it.
Then once they're in and the department is using the system, they expand by upselling. They add on higher value cloud services, things like automated video redaction, AI tools like Draft One, which we'll get to, ways to manage digital evidence from other sources, maybe integrating with the 911 event system.
So layer upon layer of software.
Exactly. That 124% NRR means, on average, they're increasing the annual contract value of their existing customers by 24% each year, just by adding these higher margin software features. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so NRR covers existing customers. What about visibility further out? That's where future contracted bookings, FCR, comes in.
FCR might be the most impressive number of all for long-term visibility. It reached $11.4 billion.
$11.4 billion.
Billion, with a B, growing 39% year over year. Think of this as revenue that's already locked in through signed contracts, often multi-year deals, 5, sometimes 10 years with government agencies.
Wow.
They expect to recognize about 20–25% of that $11.4 billion in the next 12 months. But the rest? That guarantees revenue flowing in for potentially the next decade. It's an enormous competitive advantage. How does a rival compete with $11.4 billion already booked?
They really can. And all this subscription revenue, especially the software part, drives a healthy gross margin, right? Overall adjusted gross margin was 62.7% in Q3.
Absolutely. That overall margin is heavily boosted by the software side, which probably has gross margins up in the high 70% range.
Right.
So the blended average comes out strong at 62.7%.
Okay.
And that high margin is critical. It gives them flexibility to absorb things like tariffs or economic bumps while still pouring money back into R&D to build the next thing.
Right.
The recurring revenue gives stability. The high margin fuels future growth.
Okay, now we hit the paradox. Record revenue. Incredible growth, over $1 billion in ARR, strong underlying profitability. Yet Axon reported a GAAP net loss of $2 million in Q3 2025. A tiny loss margin, 0.3%, but still a loss. How does that happen?
This is probably the most important thing for investors to understand about Axon's strategy right now. The GAAP net loss isn't an accident. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a direct, intentional result of their aggressive investment strategy.
Okay, intentional. What's driving it?
The main driver is stock-based compensation, SBC. It's enormous.
How big are we talking? How much was SBC in Q3?
In Q3 2025 alone, SBC expense was $146 million.
Wow, okay. That's huge.
It is. And that $146 million is what pushes them from being profitable on an operating basis into that small GAAP net loss. They use a compensation structure modeled on something they call an exponential stock plan, particularly for their top engineers and talent.
So let's be really clear for the listener. That $146 million isn't cash walking out the door in Q3. It's an accounting charge reflecting the value of stock grants used to pay employees.
Precisely. It's a non-cash charge representing a strategic reinvestment in people. Instead of paying that $146 million in cash salaries today, which would likely result in a GAAP profit, they pay with equity.
And the logic there is?
It aligns everyone with long-term growth.
Yeah.
Employees' compensation is directly tied to the stock price, performing exceptionally well over many years. They're essentially choosing to prioritize long-term value creation and talent retention over showing a GAAP profit right now.
And at the same time, they're spending heavily on R&D.
Massively. R&D expense was $177 million in Q3. That's nearly 25% of the revenue being plowed back into research and development.
That's a huge commitment.
It is. And the management philosophy, straight from the founder, is crystal clear. Focus on creating value, building a sustainable business, dominating the tech. Not just tweaking numbers to hit quarterly GAAP profit targets for Wall Street. Priority one is funding R&D and keeping the best talent to invent the future.
Which explains why management and probably savvy investors tend to look past that GAAP net loss and focus on metrics like adjusted EBITDA.
They really have to. Adjusted EBITDA strips out non-cash items like SBC, giving you a much clearer view of the underlying operational health and profitability.
And what was adjusted EBITDA in Q3?
It was strong, $177 million for a 24.9% margin. That shows the core business is fundamentally profitable and generates significant cash flow from operations. They could show a GAAP profit tomorrow if they just dialed back the R&D spend or used less stock comp, but that would sacrifice the long-term mission.
So the message to investors is, look at the $11.4 billion in future bookings, look at the 124% net retention, trust that we're using every resource, including our stock, to build an unassailable lead for the next decade.
It's the ultimate expression of confidence in their own future. Taking a GAAP loss is strategic choice. They're betting that the exponential value created down the road will vastly outweigh any short-term focus on accounting profits. It definitely requires investor patience and faith, but those incredible recurring revenue numbers provide a pretty solid foundation for that faith.
Okay, let's talk about where that investment is going. Growth engine number one seems to be AI, which you mentioned is their fastest growing product category. What's interesting is how they're approaching AI.
Yeah, their AI strategy is really smart, I think. They deliberately went for what they call high-reward, low-risk problems first,
Meaning,
meaning automating bureaucracy and paperwork. Stuff that eats up huge amounts of officer time, but doesn't carry the heavy ethical baggage or a public outcry risk you get with things like, say, facial recognition right out of the gate. They avoided the immediate minefield.
and the flagship product here is Draft One. Tell us exactly what that does.
Draft One is basically generative AI for police reports. It takes the audio and video from an officer's body camera after an incident.
Okay.
It transcribes the audio, analyzes the video, synthesizes all that unstructured data, and then generates the first complete draft of the official police report. It writes the narrative, organizes the details, summarizes the event, stuff that used to take officers hours to do manually back at the station.
The time savings must be incredible. Officers spend so much time on paperwork.
It's potentially transformative.
Yeah.
You hear estimates that officers spend maybe half their time on patrol, half on paperwork.
Right.
If you can automate a big chunk of that paperwork, you're essentially multiplying their effective time on the street. The data suggests Draft One can cut the time spent on bureaucratic tasks by roughly 50%.
50%. That's like giving a department a 50% manpower boost without hiring anyone.
Exactly. For agencies struggling to recruit or retain officers, that's a massive operational advantage. The numbers we saw suggest it saves individual officers somewhere between 6 and 12 hours per week.
6 to 12 hours back every week.
Yeah, freeing them up for actual policing, community engagement, the stuff they're trained for, and, frankly, the stuff that matters more.
And there's an interesting side effect too, right? It's actually changing officer behavior in the field.
This is fascinating. It's a subtle feedback loop. Officers learn pretty quickly that if they narrate what they're doing while recording, saying, I'm asking you to step out of the car because, or per department policy XYZ, the AI generates a much better, more complete report later.
Ah, so less editing needed back at the station.
Exactly. Less work for them later. So the AI is, in effect, encouraging officers to be more articulate, more transparent, maybe even more policy-aware in real time. It's kind of solving a training challenge through sheer convenience.
And Draft One is part of a broader suite of AI tools bundled into their premium plans.
Yes, they're bundling it with other practical AI tools. Things like real-time translation running right on the body camera, supporting hundreds of languages to help officers communicate on scene.
That's huge.
And another one called Policy Chat, which lets officers quickly query department policies using AI while they're still in the field instead of, texting a buddy who might give them the wrong answer. It's all about pushing that administrative burden into the cloud and keeping officers focused on the situation in front of them.
Okay, let's move to Growth Engine 2. Axon's been really active with M&A, especially to build out this Axon 901 platform, tackling the emergency call itself.
Yeah, this is a huge strategic expansion for them. It moves them earlier in the public safety timeline into the pre-incident phase. The problem they saw was the huge friction in old legacy 911 systems.
Information getting lost.
Totally. As the CEO put it, vital information is lost between the call and the response. You have the caller talking to a dispatcher, the dispatcher relaying info, often imperfectly, to officers. There are gaps, delays, misunderstandings, a major vulnerability.
So the fix involved buying two key companies, Prepared and Carburn. How do they fit together?
They address slightly different parts of the market, but create a unified offering. Prepared is designed more for agencies that aren't ready for a full system overhaul. It cleverly layers AI features on top of their existing computer-aided dispatch, their CAD system.
Okay, an enhancement.
Right. It improves the data flow, connects things better to evidence.com. Carbine, on the other hand, is the full modern replacement. It's a cloud-native, end-to-end 911 call-taking platform for agencies ready to ditch the old infrastructure entirely.
Got it. So options depending on the agency's readiness. What's the big goal here? What impact are they aiming for?
It's incredibly ambitious. They want to slash high-priority response times. The national average is somewhere around 7 to 10 minutes right now. Axon believes their integrated platform can cut that down to as little as 120 seconds.
2 minutes from call to arrival for high priority.
That's the goal. It would be a revolutionary improvement in outcomes, safety, everything.
How does the tech actually enable that speed up? What's the data flow look like?
It's all about seamless situational awareness. When a 911 call comes into the carbine system, for example, the dispatcher instantly gets precise location data, real-time transcription of the call, AI-generated summaries.
Okay.
That critical info isn't just staying with the dispatcher. It's immediately pushed out to the officers responding in the field. They get live updates, maybe even video streams from drones arriving first, the DFR program, or nearby fixed cameras via thesis, all displayed on their body camera screen or in-car computer before they even get there.
So they arrive knowing exactly what they're walking into.
Exactly. It turns a potentially chaotic situation into a much more informed, managed response. Eliminates deadly seconds of delay and guesswork.
And strategically, this move into 9/11 immediately blew open their total addressable market, or TAM.
Oh, massively. Just acquiring Prepared and Carbine added billions to their potential market size. They now estimate their integrated ecosystem TAM across tasers, cameras, software, AI, 9/11 drones is over $74 billion. It shows M&A isn't just bolting on features, it's about owning and integrating the entire public safety workflow.
Which brings us nicely to growth engine 3. Hardware, yes, but specifically drones and robotics, integrating those into the real-time response.
Right. Robotics, especially drones, are absolutely core to that real-time operational picture. The main program here is DFR Drone as a first responder.
Tell us about DFR. How does that work?
They partner mainly with Skydio, who make highly autonomous drones. These drones can be launched automatically from charging stations, maybe on city rooftops, when a high-priority call comes in.
Launched automatically.
Yeah, or by a dispatcher. The key is they arrive on scene before the human officers, sometimes minutes ahead.
And they stream video back.
Instantly. Live video goes straight into the Axon ecosystem evidence.com, the thesis platform, and gets pushed to responding officers' devices. It provides critical eyes-on-scene intelligence. Think about de-escalating situations, avoiding dangerous high-speed chases, knowing what's behind a door before officers go through it. It's a huge safety multiplier.
And they're not just deploying drones, they're also in the counter-drone business now.
That's right. They acquired a company called Drone.
It's drone.
Widely seen as the global leader in tracking and defending against unauthorized small drones. This lets Axon offer security solutions for places like NFL stadiums, airports, critical infrastructure, protecting them from drone threats. It also applies to cities and campuses worried about rogue drones. It broadens their scope beyond just police response into wider public and private security.
Okay, let's bring it back to the core hardware for a second. The new TASER 10, the T10, you mentioned it's driving real momentum, calling it a game changer. Why?
It's a game changer for one specific business reason. It's the first TASER product ever that's making customers want to upgrade early.
Before their old ones wear out.
Exactly. Police departments, like most government agencies, usually run equipment into the ground before replacing it, standard depreciation cycles. But the T10, with its significantly increased range, 45 feet, and having 10 probes instead of the previous 4 or 2.
10 shots instead of maybe 2, that's a big difference.
Huge difference in capability and officer safety. It's such a leap forward that agencies are looking at their budgets and deciding the safety benefits justify upgrading before the old tasers are fully depreciated. It's pulling demand forward, shifting the purchase decision from just cost to actual performance and safety needs.
And this improved performance, especially the reliability, is absolutely critical for their big long-term goal, international expansion.
International is the huge untapped opportunity. Axon management is on record saying they expect the international market to eventually dwarf our U.S. market. They think it could be 5 times larger, maybe more.
5 times the U.S. market.
That's the potential they see. And the T10, specifically its reliability, is the key to unlocking it.
Which leads us to this really interesting high-stakes trial happening in Norway right now. Why is Norway so important?
Norway is the ultimate test case for the T10, especially regarding that historical weakness of tasers.
Yeah.
Heavy clothing.
Right, the clothing barrier.
Exactly. Norway is cold. People wear thick layers. If the taser darts can't reliably get through that clothing to make contact and achieve that crucial 12-inch spread, the device isn't effective.
And in Norway, they're testing it as the primary defensive tool.
Yes. For police in a country that traditionally doesn't arm its officers with firearms routinely, they need a reliable intermediate force option. So if the T10 proves it can work consistently against heavy clothing in a demanding environment like Norway.
It validates it for potentially all of Europe, other cold climates.
Globally, it overcomes that major historical objection. Success in Norway would be massive validation and could unlock huge swaths of that international market where firearms aren't the default. It's a critical proving ground.
Okay, so we've covered the core public safety market, but the final growth vector we need to touch on is the founder's vision to look way beyond that into the massive enterprise greenfield market.
Yeah, this is potentially the next huge frontier for Axon, moving beyond police and fire into commercial sectors, retail, healthcare, logistics, transportation.
That feels like a completely different world, different customers, different needs, different liability issues. What's a core opportunity they see?
Scale. Pure and simple. There are orders of magnitude more retail workers, nurses, delivery drivers than police officers. It's a vast untapped market. And the core Axon value proposition, accountability, safety, de-escalation through recording, translates surprisingly well.
So they have a specific product for this.
They do. It's called the Axon Body Workforce Mini, or ABW Mini. It's designed specifically for commercial use, small, light, durable, looks kind of like an AirPods case, meant for all-day wear without being intrusive like a police camera.
But can Axon, a company steeped in law enforcement culture and government contracts, really pivot to serve, say, Walmart or a major hospital chain? Aren't the privacy concerns and sales cycles completely different?
That's absolutely the execution risk. It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
But what's driving interest is the clear ROI for these businesses.
ROI.
Look at the pain points. Retailers are seeing violent incidents skyrocket. Shrinkage, lost inventory, mostly theft is hitting maybe 3% of sales, which is enormous. In healthcare, assaults on staff are a massive problem.
Okay.
The data shows body cameras work in these settings too. One study found a 37% drop in violence and verbal abuse incidents when retail staff wore cameras. That's a direct impact on safety, on shrinkage, on liability. It offers a compelling return on investment.
And we know major companies are already looking at this.
Definitely. The sources mentioned Walmart, with its 2.4 million global employees, has been actively testing police-style body cameras. When a company that size starts testing, you know it's a real multi-billion-dollar potential market.
This whole enterprise push really highlights that founder-driven culture of taking big, risky bets. It seems baked into Axon's DNA.
It absolutely is. Rick Smith's entire history with the company is defined by it.
Yeah.
He's comfortable making multi-year, expensive bets that might totally fail. He famously compares failed projects to exploding rocket ships, necessary steps on the way to success.
Like the original CAD system they tried to build.
Exactly. They poured tens of millions into developing their own computer-aided dispatch system years ago. But they realized they couldn't innovate fast enough because police users were resistant to changing the complex keyboard commands they'd used for decades.
So what did Smith do?
He didn't double down. He shut the whole project down, wrote off the investment, called it a learning experience, and moved those resources elsewhere, eventually leading to the Prepared and Carbine acquisitions later. That willingness to admit failure and pivot, even after spending millions, is rare, and it's key to their agility.
Lastly, before we wrap up, we should acknowledge the ongoing friction they face where the technology runs ahead of the rules and regulations.
Oh, it's a constant battle. You mentioned drones earlier. Drone regulations were largely written for airplanes before commercial drones really existed. So applying those rules to small, autonomous DFR systems creates all sorts of bizarre, often illogical hurdles.
And even for the TASER itself.
Yeah, there's a perfect example. They want to add a small camera to the TASER, not for recording evidence, but just to help guide the probes, maybe prevent accidental shots to the face or sensitive areas, a pure safety feature.
Seems sensible.
Right. But because of some technicality in laws written back in the 1930s, adding that guidance camera could legally classify the TASER as a machine gun.
A machine gun? Seriously?
Seriously, which would impose massive restrictions. It's a perfect example of how outdated regulations can stifle obvious safety innovations. They're constantly pushing against these kinds of archaic legal barriers.
Okay, let's try and bring all these threads together. Synthesize this deep dive on Axon Enterprise. They fought through that internal civil war. They successfully built this incredible $1.3 billion ARR software business on top of their hardware.
A true moat.
And now they're dominating the whole public safety workflow with AI like Draft One, with strategic buys like Axon 911, expanding their market reach to over $74 billion.
The financial picture is underpinned by that incredible visibility. The $1.3 billion ARR, that 124% NRR showing expansion, and especially the $11.4 billion in future contracted bookings, that provides a level of confidence few companies have. Technologically, they seem to own the workflow from 911 call through drone response, officer interaction, evidence management, right to the automated report.
But that dominance comes at a cost, or at least an accounting trade-off. That deliberate GAAP net loss, driven by the huge $146 million quarterly SBC expense and the massive R&D spend.
It's the core tension for investors. You have to look past the standard GAAP earnings metric. You have to buy into the founder's vision that investing every available dollar, including equity, into talent and innovation today will create such an insurmountable lead that they can harvest highly profitable recurring revenue for decades to come.
You're betting on the long-term exponential value over short-term reported profit.
Exactly. It's a calculated gamble, but it's a gamble backed by some of the strongest subscription metrics you'll find anywhere.
So let's leave the listener with a final thought. What does this trajectory, especially the push beyond policing, really signify?
Well, Axon's main focus remains that Moonshot mission making officers safer and more accountable through technology. But think about the implications as that same tech body cameras, AI translation, real-time feeds proves its value and moves into the commercial world.
The enterprise market.
Right. So here's the question. If this technology becomes the accepted standard for safety, de-escalation, and truth capture in the high-stakes world of law enforcement, how long before the enterprise market, driven purely by ROI, by reducing liability, by cutting shrinkage, demands that same technology? How quickly could we see body cameras becoming standard issue, not just for cops, but for every retail worker, every nurse, every delivery driver? That shift from police necessity to commercial standard could be Axon's next truly exponential growth phase.